All right, so welcome to the Discover channel. We're going to bring a live conversation of Donald Trump and Elon Musk on X. Today is the first day Trump has come back to X. So let's tune in right now. Go for it.
These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise one eighth of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. You know, Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so stupid that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. Everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disaster.
Sure.
Hey, look, just in the 2 armies, you lost 500,000 people. And, you know, Ukraine's having a hard time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently, and it's true. You don't hear the true story. But if you think about it, Russia's gone, you know, Russia defeated Germany with us, and they defeated Napoleon. You know, they've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight. And we're in a very bad position. And I'm not going to blame exclusively, but I can tell you I could have stopped that. And a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't have happened. But we had a man that actually made it more prevalent. It was so bad. The words that he was using, the stupid threats coming from a stupid face that he was using. I said, this guy's going to cause us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to.
So this is what got Trump in trouble, got Tucker in trouble, is questioning the military-industrial complex spending blood and money on Ukraine.
You know, when looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity. And, you know, it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the Cold War, people have become complacent about, but they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles. So
this is where it's good to be Bible believers and have, you know, intelligence. We have intel from another dimension from God, and we know that even if there was a nuclear exchange, there's going to be a 7-year cleanup. That's in Ezekiel 39. Okay, so we're not actually there where it's the end of humanity. It's a bit hyperbolic, but of course they don't know the Bible.
Some other places have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But, you know, with all of that being said, to me, that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact that they can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases. And this stupid administration allowed this to happen. And it's a shame. And that's the thing that people most care about, in my opinion. They care about the border a lot. And we discussed the border at great length. It's nice to have a forum like this where I can discuss something at length. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass on you.
No, they could not.
So they don't need Elon.
So a very good point about the price of goods. Kamala is coming out saying that if she's elected, then she's going to lower prices. And the question is, why doesn't she do it now? I mean, she's actually the vice president. They are now in power.
But the big thing now is the economy, Elon.
yeah.
And as much as
Yeah.
I mean, I view nuclear as the single most important thing, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't understand that. But it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need. Because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it doesn't matter what you make. The inflation is eating you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing that's happening, and we'll end that quickly.
Well, I think a lot of a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply, and if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. So really, we need to have we need to reduce our government spending, and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible?
Right.
Well, by the way, that is what Mike Flynn got in trouble for. General Mike Flynn was commissioned by Obama. He's a Democrat, actually, and he was commissioned by Obama to go in and grade or assess the intelligence agencies. And he said, gee, what are you guys doing? You're inefficient. And for that, he became the enemy of Obama and the enemy of the state. And when Trump came in, then the last words that, or the only advice that Obama gave to Trump was, watch out for Flynn. And it was because he was trying to create efficiency.
We gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. They're one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy prices down. Energy started it. The price of gasoline. Now your cars don't require too much gasoline, so you have a good, and you do make
Trump's
a
a little
great
bit
product,
ambivalent about EVs, so
that doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible. But the gasoline,
he never used to say that.
the cost of energy, not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150, and 200%, and that has to come down. When that comes down, and we're going to drill, baby, drill. They stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won the day after they get into office, this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable. Wind and different things. You're not going to have anything.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big,
by the way, in real time, Trump is now at 88.8 million followers. So this morning it was 88.2. He just gained 600,000 followers in a few hours. It'd be nice if some of our YouTube followers right now would just go to X. I don't think you can get into the space and hear the interview. That's why we're on and we're doing this as a service. But if you go on X right now and type in Cioccolanti, please come and follow me there.
Almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
Sure. Well, just going, back to this, like this basic thing, which that people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is caused by government overspending. Right. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible?
So it's the second time he's saying it. He's probably wanting to head it up.
The waste is incredible, and nobody negotiates prices. You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with two companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I went through it, like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general said, "Sir, would you please sign this document?" And what is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was
Yeah.
$5.7 billion for 2 planes. Now,
Wow.
now they're highly sophisticated.
That's insane.
They're even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're very, I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
That's a crazy
It's
number.
a crazy number, but I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it. And over a course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than
That's
we
a
had a nice
negotiator.
but for the exact same plane, I saved one. And
That's one of the accomplishments that I put in. Actually, I got the French version here, but the pro-Christian accomplishments of President Trump talks about how he negotiated everything like it's his own money. And the politicians don't do that.
These dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other items.
Multiply it by
yeah,
a
the
zillion,
numbers are
and
astronomical. I agree with you.
Well, I mean, I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things.
That's the third time he's saying it.
Ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love it
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But, you know, if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy to help
by the way,
out.
congratulations. I just looked at
That's
the number
it.
of people.
So that's what he wants to do. Said it 4 times. Dropping hints 4 times. He wants to be on that, be a commissioner on that agency. Somebody asked, what's the name of the book? I'm holding the French one up. So it's called Trump's Pro-Christian Accomplishments. It's the only record of what he did comprehensively that's pro-Christian, pro-Israel, pro-church. So go to Amazon for that.
He's a big MAGA fan. You know that. He ran on MAGA. And he took it to an extreme, too. He ran on MAGA. And I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats. He brought everything. But he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. You know, they had
This is Argentina, Milei.
They had inflation like not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to have that pretty soon. I think we have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They don't include a lot of the items that should be included, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's just from government overspending and not spending taxpayer money effectively, and having, you know, just like so many departments you can't even name them all. And what Milei is doing is, you know, he's cutting government spending. He's simplifying things. He's putting in regulations that make sense. And Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement in prosperity, but it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. You know, in the 30s, 40s, and because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have, you know, phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything, and it should be prosperous. But if the government's wrong, it impoverishes the people. And so I think we should not be complacent in the United States in thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy, we can run the country into the ground. And that's just something people should bear in mind. Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education. So we're ranked at the bottom of every list of the top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38. Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, different countries are ranked good. Actually, China's pretty close to the top. They're a top 6 or 7. But we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great, because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But of the 50, I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15 of them, or 20 of them, will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. I mean, they're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well-run. Sure. And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of, the
I'm going to watch if Elon comes back, because Trump's missing his point at this moment.
There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better, because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. And these people don't care about the students in these, faraway states. And it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to, if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move to states where it's better.
Well, like California, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. But some of these places are just badly run. But it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do it good initially. But you're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little monitor. You want to make sure they're teaching English, as an example. Give us a little English, right?
Sure.
Right.
No, but I mean, to what? I mean, some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award because they're driving so much U-Haul.
It's actually amazing.
It's just people moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois. So many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? I mean, how do they survive? I saw where you left California, and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. But, I mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses? And their taxes are already really high. The taxes are among the highest taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job, and they're crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's not a good situation.
I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal government.
Right. Well.
That's the only thing that's going to get them changed.
You remember the area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into a form of chapter, and it was very nasty for a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. So at some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So what is he going to be? Is he going to be a great governor? And you have people.
If I may say, Trump is running for president of the United States. He's not running for a governorship in any state. He should really stay on point. Elon made a great point that the wealth that he's enjoying, and a lot of Americans enjoy, is going to evaporate like Argentina used to, and Venezuela, if we don't learn in some kind of like civic duty class or some education for children that socialism is the enemy of prosperity and freedom. I think that's the point he was making, but it's gone off to comments about governors.
that got hurt
Um,
worse are the people that did it the way they were taught to do it all through, their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that saved money and then they got no interest on their money and inflation destroyed them. And frankly, they were almost better off if they didn't do anything like that. I mean, those people have been absolutely decimated, and we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. When I look at bacon costing 4 or 5 times more than it did a few years ago, when you look at some of the food products in grocery stores, people go, they can't believe it. They used to be able to buy a whole cart, and today, a lot of people just don't have the money. They go in and they can't buy anything. They look at it's sticker shock. They call it sticker shock, right?
I think it really just comes, like I said, I think it just comes down to really, I guess, two things, which is that if you solve government overspending, you solve inflation, which improves living standards of the average person, and then if you deregulate, like have sensible regulations, so because a lot of the regulations are nonsensical and cause the cost to be extreme for no reason, but unless you've got effective deregulation, like Reagan did a great job on deregulation in the 80s, but it's been 40 years since we had anyone really. I mean, during your administration, we made some progress, but I think there's an opportunity to make, I think, radical progress with sensible regulation. And if
Elon,
those two things, those are the big deals.
We set a record. We did more deregulation and more restrictions on all of the different businesses than any other president. Remember, I had the rule for every one we put in, you have to get rid of 10 or 12. And
he exceeded that rule. I recorded in Trump's pro-Christian accomplishments. He exceeded the rule. Every new regulation they had to cut, they ended up cutting 20 to 22 old regulations. And that's similar to what Ronald Reagan did.
Maybe in the world. And then what happened is COVID came in, and we had to focus on that, and nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did so many different things. We rebuilt. But, I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always said it, and it turned out to be right. But had that not happened, we were set to start reducing debt. We were going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further for middle-income people, not only businesses. But we did it for businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And, we're sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill, and we were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression. But the problem is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. We got over that bad period where everybody was dying and, it was just not a good period. Interestingly, during his administration, many more people died.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency. What started off as
people don't realize more
unlikely,
people died during
impossible
his
is now reality.
Fight for you with every breath in my body,
3 years,
and I will never.
And you know that probably better than anybody. So many of your friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years, and also said that African American, Hispanic American were so incredible. They were having the best. Asian American women, men, young people without a diploma, young people that graduated from the best colleges, from MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard, they were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better, and everybody was happy. And then COVID came, and we had the problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I should probably say something about, like, maybe my views on, climate change and oil and gas, because I think it's probably different from what most people would assume. Because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving, and the economy would collapse. So it's, I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry. And the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries. Sure. And it would help with prosperity in the U.S. And at the same time, obviously, my view is like, we do over time want to move to a sustainable energy economy, because eventually you do run out of. You run out of oil and gas. It's not there. It's not infinite. And there is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So it still gives us. So what it means is, like, we still have quite a bit of time, but so there's not, like, we don't need to rush, and we don't need to stop farmers from farming, or prevent people from having steaks, or basic stuff like that. Like you can leave the farmers alone.
I agree. How crazy is that? Where you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore. And
this is happening in Idaho.
The whole world is a little crazy, but it's largely taken its lead from us. I do say, though, I've heard in terms of the fossil fuel, because even to create your electric car and create the electricity needed for the electric car, fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants. And, so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. Someday you might be able to, but I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left. Much of it hasn't even been found yet.
Yeah.
But there are tremendous, like ANWR. I got ANWR in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Everybody tried. Nobody could do it. I got it approved. The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it, to get rid of it. He ended it. His secretary went in and she ended it. And what a disgrace. That's ANWR. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, that is, they say, bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size, and pure, really good stuff. And, they end it. So I think we have, perhaps hundreds of years left. Nobody really knows. But during that time, something will come around that will be very good.
Yeah. Well, and my estimate would be, a little more aggressive than that. But it's not the sort of, like, we're all going to die in 5 years stuff. That's obviously BS. But my view is, like, if you just look at sort of the parts per million that increments every year, you get sort of 2 or 3 parts per million every year of CO2. I think some of that it's problematic if it accelerates. If you start going from 2 or 3 to, say, 5, and then there may be some situations where you get just a step change increase in the CO2. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because, like, that's actually makes it uncomfortable to breathe. Like, just existing in 1,000 ppm CO2 is uncomfortable.
See, this is where we're environmentalists, right? We believe in clean air, clean water, clean soil. So all these synthetic things, synthetic food, synthetic fertilizers, we should be against that. But it's not about the alarmist climate change. The sea level is going to rise, everyone's going to drown. So I think that's a pretty good point. It's a balanced point about the environment.
I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're I don't know, mostly sustainable. I think that'll probably be okay. So it's not like the house is on fire immediately, but I think it is something we need to move towards. And on balance, it's probably better to move there faster than slower. But like I said, without vilifying the oil and gas industry, and without causing hardship in the short term.
I live a lot of my time in Asia, and I can tell you pollution is real. And, when the rivers got all dirty and the air was full of carbon monoxide, it was uncomfortable. But you need to have a pro-human policy, not an anti-human policy where you can't eat, you can't, consume meat, and you can't drive. And it's not that. So Elon's quite balanced about this so far for being a guy who owns an EV company.
Of Earth's energy generation in the future, and it's certainly trending that way. And so you get the solar power, combine that with batteries, so because obviously the sun doesn't shine at night, and then you use that to charge the electric cars, and you have a long-term sustainable solution. And that's what Tesla's trying to move things towards, and I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. But when you look at our cars, we don't believe that environmentalism, that caring about the environment should mean that you have to suffer. So we make sure that our cars are beautiful, that they drive well, that they're fast, they're sexy. I mean, they're cool. In fact, literally, I made this sexy joke: Model S, Model 3, Model X, and Y spells out sexy. It's probably the most expensive joke out there. But I don't know, I like cheesy humor, So, but I'm a big fan of let's have an inspiring future, and let's work towards a better future, and we do so without demonizing people.
Right. I'm okay. It's very interesting. You use the word global warming, and today they use the word climate change because you have some places that go up, and so they were getting themselves in a little trouble with the word global warming because not every place is warming. Some places are going the opposite direction. But I'm sort of waiting for you to come up with solar panels on the roofs of your cars and on the trunks of the cars. And it just seems like something that at some point you will come up with. I'm sure you'll be the first. But it would seem that a solar panel on the roofs, on flat surfaces, on certain surfaces might be good.
Yeah.
At least in certain areas of the country where you have the world,
sure,
where you have the sun. But I would think, and I have no idea because that's not my world, but I would think that this would be something that would be interesting. But the one thing that I don't understand is that people talk about global warming or they talk about climate change, but they never talk about nuclear warming. And for me,
Sure.
that's an immediate problem because you have, as I said, 5 countries where you have major nuclear and probably some others are getting there, and that's very dangerous. That's where you need a strong American president because you don't want to have this proliferation. But you have 5 countries and getting more. China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think. They're way lower. Russia and us are number 1, and we're sort of tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that you're not surprised to hear very fast. They'll end up catching up, maybe even surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not. And everything's, a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem is the nuclear power. The power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk about I'll prevent World War III, I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is a nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation, but it's actually one of the safest forms of electricity generation. It's just a huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I'm not going to try to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation. Right. And there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that,
maybe they'll have
sort
to
of
change the
have
name.
it,
The name is just, it's a rough name. There are some areas like
it's rough
when
name.
you see what happened in
Good bad branding.
right,
The
we'll have to
branding's rough.
rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
It does have a branding problem.
when you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they, there's a lot of bad things happened. And
Chernobyl.
they have a problem. They say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No, that's not true.
But
That's not true, because you can put zeolites and other things that will suck up the toxins.
Fukushima happened in Japan. Like people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So
right.
it's really not something that
That's right.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But let's see. I mean, are there some other topics we should touch on? Like lawfare. I think we need to be concerned about.
Well, this is it. This season for justice. This is what we need to hear from Trump.
Florida. This was a Biden administration did something that's never been done in this country, and that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. In the big case in Florida, we won, but they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs, they use the local attorney generals, like Fani, Fani, spelled Fani, Fani. And it's all a big hoax, and it's all run from there. Like in Manhattan, one of the top people from the Justice Department went in, ran Manhattan, ran the state. The Letitia James deal was run by a person from the Department of Justice, Biden. They've never done this before, and they set up a very bad precedent. It's called Lawfare Warfare. It's a terrible thing, and never happened in our country. It does happen in banana republics and third world countries, but it's never happened. And the incredible thing is it actually drove my numbers up, because people see, fortunately I have a platform like you, or, in all fairness, like a conversation like this, where I can talk about it and people understand. I mean, you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens is they went after their political opponent, me. Now Biden's, close to vegetable stage, in my opinion. Okay. I looked at him today on the beach and I said, why would anybody allow him? The guy could barely walk. Why would anybody allow him? Does he have a political advisor that thinks this looks good? He thinks this looks good because it looks so bad, and it's ridiculous. I mean, and he's been doing that for a long time. He can't lift the chair. The chair weighs about 3 ounces. It's meant for children and old people to lift, and he can't lift it. The whole thing is crazy.
Well, he's clearly. He's clearly like, we just don't have a president. Right
you
now.
don't have a president, and she's going to be worse than him, because she is a San Francisco liberal who destroyed San Francisco. And then as Attorney General, she destroyed California. You talk about location, and we're talking about the sun and the water and all. There's nothing better than California. She has destroyed that. She was the original DA. She was the original in San Francisco. She was the original Attorney General in California. What she has done to California is, well, you know better than I do. You just left California for a lot of those reasons. And what she's done with crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody. I mean, we have states now, you kill somebody and they let you out right away. I mean, you don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our country is becoming a very dangerous place, and she is a radical left San Francisco liberal, and now she's trying to protect. Now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump. if that's possible. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, she stole his slogan about no tax on tips.
I think that's
You know, she wants to release all the prisoners that are in detention, and some of these guys are really bad.
right.
That just came out today. She doesn't want to build the wall, even though the walls work. Walls and wheels. You know, in your business, everything you do is obsolete, almost, well, not the tunnels, but everything is obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're like a month later, they're obsolete. You find a better way to. The only thing that's not obsolete is a wall and a wheel. And the wall, you know, I built hundreds of miles of wall, and that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add 200 miles. We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not true.
And everybody knows
it's
it's not true. It's a disgrace that she can say it.
No, I mean, obviously, what's happening sort of overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic, and if she's going to be our president, very quickly you're not going to have a country anymore. And she'll go back to all of the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero.
He's just going to do the attack on Kamala, which is the same in every rally. But what's interesting is her VP pick, this Walz guy, was the favorite VP pick for Bernie Sanders if he were the Democrat candidate. So that's how far left these two people are.
Like the Palestinians and Israel. She is so anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him, you know, both sides. That was a hard thing to do, unification.
Yeah, no. I mean, Netanyahu came to give a talk to a joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. You know, what does that say?
I think it's highly disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, you know, is a very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden. And Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined. And you see tonight, I mean, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. You know, their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use the term that's appropriate.
Can be overwhelmed.
But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better than anybody. By shooting enough missiles, they can't defend themselves. You know, they just obliterate the whole place. And that's what some people think they're looking to do. And we have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these people. And I'm telling you, she'll be worse than him, because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, it's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record, you know, before the last month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left. And we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate when she, in fact, is not moderate.
Well, her running mate signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now that's all I have to hear. Tampons in boys' bathrooms, and that means she believes in that too. I mean, she picked this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite. But she picked an anti-Israel radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as the president, I don't think our country can survive.
I think it's a massive. I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration, and that's my honest opinion. And I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country, for this election. And I mean, I'm just stating my opinion.
That's a huge endorsement.
Now, you may have seen this, but I got a letter from the EU Commission, like saying, to not have disinformation on during this discussion that we're having, and there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries.
Australia tried to censor Elon as well.
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know. We, through a different forum, NATO, we protect them. And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible. The same thing with our farmers. Our farmers find it very difficult to do business. We have a deficit with them of $250 billion, which people don't know. It sounds so nice, the European Union, but let me tell you, they're not as tough as China, but they're bad. And I let them know it. And that's probably why they notified you. No, they don't treat our country well. We defend them, with Ukraine. So we're in for 250 billion and they're in for about 71 billion, and they have the same size. If you add up the European nations that, in terms of an economy, it's about the same size when you say as us. And they're in, and they're in much greater risk. They're right there. We have an ocean separating us from, in this case, the enemy would be Russia. Used to be for the Soviet Union, but let's assume they're close enough. And what happens is they're in for 70-something million. I think even less than that, billion. And we're in for about 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than that. And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more, it's much more important for them because of the fact that, they're right near there. I mean, they're all sort of in that location. We're not. But they should, and I did it with NATO. There were only 7 countries that were paid up in NATO out of 28 at the time. And the United States the United States was subsidizing NATO, tremendously subsidizing NATO. And I said, I went in and I said, you got to pay up. If you don't pay up, we're not going to defend you any longer. I took a lot of heat, but you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in. And
I think a lot of the public isn't aware of the fact that the United States pays a disproportionate share of the NATO expenses.
And then we get taken advantage of on trade. So think about it.
Well, I mean, the point of NATO is defending Europe, and it's it's like, then okay, well, why is the United States paying disproportionately more to defend Europe than Europe? That doesn't make sense. That's unfair, and that is an appropriate thing to address.
Well, when you talk about cost cutting and savings and everything else, I mean, honestly, look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do, because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me, because when they went with the Russia hoax and they said I had a phone call with him, he said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and, said, oh, he was very threatening. He said, no, it was a very nice phone call. I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached because these people are lunatics. I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemies on the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country than the Russias and the Chinas. If you have a smart president, you're not going to have a problem with them. You're going to do things.
Yeah.
Now, they've taken advantage of
absolutely.
us incredibly, but you're going to do things with the right person.
Yeah, well, I think it's obvious that you're a believer and an advocate of free speech, because during your first term as president, you were attacked relentlessly every day, often very unfairly with false attacks, and you didn't try to shut down the media. You didn't try to inhibit their freedom of speech, and I think that says a lot.
Well, the good thing is that you and I have, and some people, very few, we can get the word out. Although sometimes it's hard because they don't want to print it, like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't, because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this conversation. And Biden, we don't even have to talk about it. I mean, he couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up on the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, where am I? Where am I going? So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people would have this conversation, but we cover a lot of territory. But the beauty is that we can have a conversation, and I'm able to get it out without, because
I'm still waiting for them to come back to the point that Elon made about how there is no leader in this country. And I'm surprised that they're not going to the jugular. In my dream, God gave me a dream that the person that's holding the nuclear code right now in my dream, prophetically or symbolically, is Obama. I'm sure that they're aware of that Kamala is very, very dumb and is not able to lead the country. But so who is leading? That's really a big question, because it's a total attack on democracy.
He really liked me, and I got along with him really well. By the way, he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, "Oh, do you think he really?"
That's for sure.
Let me tell you, I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But we had a good relationship, and he doesn't like Biden. He considers him a stupid man. He said he's a stupid man. Well, at least he speaks his mind. But in this country, you're not sort of allowed to say it. But I guess you are. You should be allowed to say
Putin,
it.
I think.
But we need smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And she doesn't have that ability. Can you imagine? Now, Chairman Xi very well. Can you imagine her and him negotiating, or even standing together? It is, the whole concept is ridiculous. She is terrible. She's terrible. But she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. And actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman. So we'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe I think part of what people in America want to feel excited and inspired about the future. They want to feel like the future is going to be better than the past, and that America is going to do things that are greater than we've done in the past, reach new heights that make you proud to be an American, and excited about the future.
They want the American dream back. They want the American dream back. More important than anything else. It's like you don't have that today, because the people, they've been just sucked. They see incompetent people running our. The Biden thing is very interesting. People just found him to be incompetent, and when I debated him, I was like, is this for real? It was.
Yeah, it was just absurd. But I think there are some grand projects that we could do. I mean, I think we could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high-speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to solve traffic with tunnels. We've already made great progress in Vegas doing that, and and just do things that are exciting and inspiring and make the future feel like it's better than the past.
Well, I saw what you did in Vegas, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I got to see. I took a big glimpse at it, and it's incredible. It's incredible, and you could do that all over. It's deep.
Yeah.
You don't even need much structure, assuming you're in the right area.
No, it's straightforward.
It's amazing.
I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible high-speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels if with deregulation, with an ability to actually, where it's legal to actually do the tunnels. Then you could have high-speed tunnels that are actually better than anything else in the world for high-speed transport between cities, and that would be something that Americans can say, "Wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the world." That's the kind of thing that makes you proud to be an American.
And much safer than surface trains, where there is a danger there. With crazy people, it's much safer, much better. And it's sad, because I've seen some of the greatest trains. I find it fascinating. And I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains, they call them, I guess. And they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems. And we don't have anything like that in this country, not even close. And it doesn't make sense that we don't. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think also there's, I'm kind of hopping on the excess regulation, but I think something that I think people can generally understand is that what happens with laws and regulations is that there's more and more of them every year, and unless there's a process to clean them up, eventually everything becomes illegal, and that actually it slows down the development of new technologies. I mean, if you take the sort of like, I think there's room for some reform at the FDA for improving the speed with which we approve drugs that could help save lives and improve people's lives. And
I worked very hard on that. We got that down to the lowest number ever, and we got therapeutics approved in the FDA that people can't even believe the speed. But I took them on. I don't think they like me too much, but I got things approved in the FDA at numbers that they wouldn't believe. And it's a very bureaucratic group. Actually, it's a fine group of people in many cases. I got to know a lot of them, but I was pushing them really hard for Regeneron, for so many different things that were really pretty amazing. But the FDA takes too long. It's 12 years to get a product approved. I got it down to 4, and I got some things done very quickly. But it's really something that is going to have to be worked on because it takes too long. Just takes too long.
Yeah, it just takes too long, and it's you end up in the same with the approval, but it's just it takes years instead of something that I think could potentially take months, that improves people's lives. I think I just wanted to hop on this point that like there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year, and you get like hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and it's a really big deal.
Elon, just getting back to the FDA for 1 second, I got something done called Right to Try. This is where you can go in, and if you're terminally ill, you can use a space age, medicine or whatever it may be. We have the best doctors, the best labs in the world. We really do. But people would go to other countries because you couldn't use the product, even if they thought it worked, because it's going through the FDA. I got it approved where you can, you basically, look, nobody wanted, the doctors didn't want it because of the liability. The country didn't want it, our country, because they didn't want to get sued. These are people terminally ill. The insurance companies didn't want it, and the pharmaceutical companies, nobody wanted it. I got everybody into a room, and we came up with an agreement that you won't get sued. And also, they didn't want it on their record. If somebody's terminally ill and they die after taking a drug, they didn't want that on their record. So we set a separate list if somebody was, so it wouldn't count as a negative. Okay. And as you know, we got it done. We have saved Right to Try. They've been trying to get this done for 58 years, and it sounds simple, but it wasn't, because the insurance companies, nobody wanted it, but we got it done. Somebody signs, you sign a document that you're not going to sue the insurance companies, the country, you're not going to sue anybody. And we got it done, and we're saving tens of thousands of lives. Right to Try. Hopefully you never need it, but if you do, you don't have to travel to Asia. People, if they had money, they go to Asia, they go to Europe. If they don't have money, they go home and die. That's what happened. They'd go home and die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and actually, to give Europe some props here, it's like if a drug is approved in Europe, which has a crazy amount of regulations, it should obviously be approved in the U.S. Yeah. I mean, they got more regulations than we do. So why would a drug be approved in Europe and not in the U.S.? That's crazy.
Well, we did it. We did something that really, they've been trying to do it for 50 years, and they just couldn't get it done, and I got it done. And it's really something. But you're right. Some people go to Europe because a drug isn't approved here, but it's approved in Europe, and it's a drug that, generally speaking, would work. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely,
you're right.
And I think so, as long as people are properly informed of the pros and cons, and like these are the risks, this is the risk, and like you make your own decision. That makes sense.
Well, I think just in sort of closing up, and by the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get nervous, because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number?
It's got 1.1 million. We're just about to hit 1,000 on our live broadcast because some people can't join in X.
Well, wow. I think in terms of people,
that's bigger than you said. You said 25, and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70, and I guess over a period of time. Hey, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
Well, I think actually in terms of the number of people that will hear this conversation over the next few days to weeks, it's going to be hundreds.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's good. Well, look, it's an honor. I just asked this: are you better off now, or were you better off when I was president? Nobody's better off now. People, we put out polls on that, and nobody's better off now. Inflation has killed it. And, they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's going on with a lot of different things. You look at the riots we had at the colleges it's ridiculous, but all of the riots, they just feel unsafe. And now they really feel unsafe because you have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. Maybe I'll call it Kamala migrant crime. But,
with all these things, I always try to get to the ground truth by just asking people. And, my mom lives in New York, and I was like, Mom, have any of your friends, been attacked or assaulted? And she said, yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets in New York. And I said, well, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. And they just know
they always get away.
Injustice. That's the issue.
They didn't even bother reporting it because they know that they're not going to. People are not going to get prosecuted. They just let violent criminals out in New York.
The only one that gets prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, it's just obviously messed up.
Oh, it's terrible.
If violent criminals are being getting off scot-free, and meanwhile the New York spending massive resources prosecuting you, and it's like what's this? And I think the sort of sensible public looks at this and says, what the heck's going on here? This is obviously abuse of the legal system. The legal system is supposed to be protecting the public from violent criminals, and it should be obviously allowing the public to make their own decision about who should be president, as opposed to some legal case.
Once they start this precedent, because this can go on with the next one. This is a very bad precedent what they're doing. In terms of, going after their political opponent. And that's all it is. It's going after their political opponent. And then you get a judge who's, a strong Democrat. And I'm being nice when I say that. In many cases, crooked as hell. But you get a judge and you go into an area where a Republican gets 3 or 4% of the vote. And, you'll have a jury pool with people that hate Republicans or hate. It could also be the other way, though, because it could start the other way in areas where they hate Democrats. And you get into a Pandora's box. It's a very dangerous thing for this country, and a very dangerous thing even for the state. New York City is losing. New York City and state lose a lot of business over what they did to me, because these people say, we don't want that to happen to us. That's no justice system. You have an unfair system of justice, and it's costing New York State a tremendous amount of money. People are leaving and companies are leaving, and they won't come back. So, all of that stuff is important. But the economy now is the big thing, and we can turn that economy up so fast, and people are going to be back again. We're going to get rid of inflation.
I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
and I just want to congratulate you. You've done an amazing job. You have definitely got a fertile mind. We can talk. You and I can talk about rockets.
It's kind of you to say. Thank you.
Tunnels. We can talk about tunnels and rockets and electric cars. So many things. And now you're into the AI, and that's going to be another beauty, I'll say. So it's an amazing thing you've done, Elon. It's an amazing thing, and I congratulate you.
Thank you. And I just say here, here's to an exciting, inspiring future that people can look forward to and be optimistic and excited about what happens next. And that's the kind of future that I think you will bring as president, and that's why I endorse you.
Well, I appreciate that. That endorsement meant a lot to me. Not all endorsements mean that much, to be honest. Your endorsement meant a lot. And, we have a phrase, make America great again. It's pretty simple, but it really says that we want to make America great again. And we can do it. We can do it now. But if we were going to suffer another 4 years like we suffered for the last 4 years, I'm not sure the country can ever come back. That's how bad it is. It's so bad. We have to do a lot of things.
I think that's a very real risk.
Yeah, it's a big risk.
It's a very real risk.
Yep.
and it's, I'd just like to note to people listening, like I've not been very political before, and if you look at my record, I've actually been. I'm not like some sort of try to paint me as like a far right guy, which is absurd because I'm like making electric vehicles and solar and batteries, helping with the environment, and I actually I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running for president, and so it's not like I'm like some sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I'd call myself historically a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like we're really at a critical juncture for the country, and I think a lot of people thought the Biden administration would be a moderate administration, but it's not, and obviously we're just going to see an even further left administration with Kamala. That's my honest opinion. I mean, her dad is literally. She was brought up as an actual. Her dad is a Marxist economist. You can Google it. I mean, we're not making this up. That's how she was brought up. So, and we want to have a future that is prosperous. And I think we're just at this critical juncture, and I think this is a case of the America. Is kind of at a fork in the road, and
sure.
And I think it will take the path like you are the path to prosperity, and I think Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my honest opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy, and I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself, but I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion, and I haven't been really active in politics before, and I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically is been moderate, if not moderate, slightly left, and so this is to people out there who are in the moderate camp to say, I think you should support Donald Trump for president, and I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
Well, I want to thank you, and I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So it's even more of an honor to have your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it. But, when you think of her, San Francisco, 15 years ago, I had a great friend, Bob Tish. He said it's the greatest city in America. And now it's almost not livable there. And California, likewise. And she was involved in the destruction of San Francisco and the destruction of California. And she will be involved in the destruction of our country if people are so unwise as to elect her. And I hope that doesn't happen. And I hope the elections are going to be run honestly. And we're going to turn this country around. We're going to do things and we can do it fairly quickly. And we have to get rid of the criminals that have been, given to us by other countries as they laugh. They laugh at us. They think we're stupid to accept these people. These are radical, stone cold killers in many cases and terrorists. And they're in our country by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And we have to take them out.
Yeah, I mean, if I could summarize it, perhaps, I think these are issues that I think most people in America would agree with, which is that we want safe and clean cities, we want secure borders, we want sensible government spending, we want to restore both the perception and reality of respect in the judicial system, stop the lawfare, and I think. That's like, and how are those even right-wing positions? I think those are that's just common sense, and that's would you agree with that?
100%. I don't understand. They call it progressive. They don't like the word liberal anymore, but call it liberal or progressive. I don't understand how somebody could say that it's okay for them to empty prisons into our country. And again, I told you their crime rates all over the world are going way down, which makes sense. In fact, the next time what we'll do is if something happens with this election, which would be a horror show, we'll meet the next time in Venezuela because it'll be a far safer place to meet than our country, okay? So you and I will go and we'll have a meeting and dinner in Venezuela because that's what's happening. Their crime rate's coming down and our crime rate's going through the roof, and it's so simple. And you haven't seen anything yet because these people have come into our country and they're just getting acclimated. And they don't know about being politically correct law enforcement or lack of law enforcement. And our police, I have to just end with this. We have great police. We have great law enforcement, but they're not allowed to do their job. They have to be able to do their job without being destroyed.
Well, absolutely, and it's obviously demoralizing if you're a police officer risking your life to arrest violent criminals who could kill you and do kill you sometimes, and then you arrest the violent criminal, and then the DA doesn't prosecute and just let the guy out. Well, then why should a police officer risk their life to arrest a violent felon?
Well, even worse, Elon,
if nothing's going to happen.
Even worse, they prosecute the police officer. They go after it and they prosecute the police officer, and they take away his pension, they take away his job. He loses his family. He loses his house.
Well, I thought it was very telling, like incredibly telling, that when there was that case where sort of a gang of thugs beat up police officers. I think it was in Times Square in New York, and then nothing happened to those guys. They were let out, zero bail, and I think a bunch of them were given free tickets to California. Well, what is that? I mean, that is a gross indignity against the United States, and that's how. I mean, this is insane. Like, have we lost all pride? How can such a thing be allowed to occur?
I've never seen anything. We see where they get shot. It's a very dangerous profession, but it's something they're very proud of, and they want to be able to do their job. But I've seen them get shot. I've seen a lot of things. But I've never seen where these guys are standing in the middle of a big street, everybody watching them, and they're literally boxing, like punching, stand-up fighting a police officer. There were two of them, and you had about six of these guys, and they're punching the hell out of them. And in their own country, they would be dead if they did that. They'd be shot. They would be shot instantly. And, they come from these countries, and it's taking them a while to realize that we don't do that in this country. But in their own country, if they stood on a street and had a fight with a police officer, they would be shot. There's no political correctness. And it's such a sad, it's such a sad thing to see. And that's the reason you have crime, by the way, because we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, we just cannot have a situation where our police officers are beaten up on camera by a gang of illegal immigrants, and then nothing happens to the guys that beat up the cops. I mean, and they're let out. This is unacceptable.
Well, we're going to change it, and we're going to get them out of the country. When I first got involved, they said you couldn't get them back to these countries. You couldn't take them back. In the case of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, some others, you couldn't get them back. And I said, really? Oh, you can't get it back? Because under Obama, he couldn't get them back. They'd fly them in, and they'd put planes on the runways in these countries so you couldn't land a plane. They'd bring them back. And the generals told me, sir, we can't bring them back. The countries won't accept MS-13 gang members. They won't accept them. And I said, really, how much do we pay these various countries in terms of economic aid, which is also somewhat ridiculous? And the answer was $750 million. I said, good. Tell them they're in default, they're delinquent. We're not paying them anymore because they won't accept it. And you know what happened? They all called me, every one of them. They said, we would be honored to take them back, sir. We would be honored. It was so easy. But it's one of those things. And we got it back. We took in so many, the MS-13 is probably the worst gangs in the world. They're the most vicious, violent. We took them out of here by the thousands and got them out of here. And their countries took them back. And because I said, you're not getting any more economic aid. And once I said that, they were nice. They wouldn't take them back for Obama. They wouldn't take them back for anybody. And now we have a problem because we have this guy, and they don't take them back anymore with Biden because they don't respect him.
It's just gotta be done. We just can't have whether they're citizens or not citizens. We can't have, because they won't prosecute citizens either, not just illegals. So if it's, you can't have violent, repeat violent offenders that are not that don't get incarcerated.
That's right.
Because they will obviously, by definition, continue to hurt people. And I think where part of this comes from is that there's and I do sort of consider myself liberal in some ways. I mean, it's just that you want to have empathy for people. Obviously, you want to have empathy for people. I totally agree with that. You want to have empathy, but you also have to have empathy for the victims of the criminals. And if you just have empathy for the criminals, it's actually shallow empathy. It's not real. you're not thinking. You have one layer deep empathy. You got to say, like, what if you don't incarcerate this person? Who are they going to hurt? They might kill someone. They might rape someone. If you don't incarcerate them, you have to have empathy for the victims. And there's a lack of empathy for the victims of the criminals, and too much empathy for the criminals. It doesn't make sense. That's why you want to have deep empathy for society as a whole, not shallow empathy for criminals.
Right. And we have to give our police officers the dignity and the respect that they deserve. And we have to let them do their job. They can do a great job, but we have to let them do their job. And if we don't do that, it's going to all disappear. There's never been a society like this where you're allowed to do anything you want and nothing happens. And I'm talking about violent crime. And it's going to get more violent because these are really, really violent people. And we're going to get them out of our country, and we're going to get them back to because they were sent here by the presidents and by the various people that run those countries. And I know every one of those guys. And they're smart people, and they're streetwise people. And they really think that the USA is stupid. They think we're run by stupid people, and they happen to be right. But when I was there, we had no problem. We got them out. We took out thousands of MS-13 gang members. We brought them back. And now, again, it's the same old story. We don't do it. And they actually gave them a big increase in aid. They raised it up to billions of dollars, and they get nothing for it. So, I hope everybody's going to vote for Trump, and we're going to get this country straight.
Yeah.
And I didn't need this. I didn't need this. I had a very nice life. I didn't need to go through court systems and go through all the other stuff and run at the same time. I have to run. I have to go through fake trials with, in some cases, corrupt judges, totally corrupt judges. I didn't need it. I had a nice life. I have great locations. I have beautiful oceans that I have places. But I felt it was important. And if I had to do it over again, you probably think I'm crazy for doing it, actually. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done it over again, because this is so much more important than me or my life. We're going to save this country. This country is going down. And these people are bad people that we're running against, and they're liars. They make statements. They do things that are so bad. They say they're going to make a strong border. They say they've been great on the border, and they've been the worst in history. They say they're going to stop crime.
The facts speak for themselves.
It's so incredible.
Speak for themselves. Like it's gotten to the point where people just don't even bother reporting crime in a lot of cities because they know nothing is going to happen. That's what I hear anecdotally from people all the time. So it's just my values. I'm just saying to people out there, like the things I think are important for the future is, like, we've got to have safe cities, we've got to have secure borders, we've got to have sensible spending, and we've got to have deregulation, and so we can have a prosperous future. And then we want to have some exciting, sort of moonshot projects that people can get fired up about. And that's the future I'm looking for. And I'm pro environment, but I'm not against. I'm not like, I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry, because they're keeping civilization going right now. And but I do think we want to move at a reasonable speed towards a sustainable energy economy. Those are my values, and I think and so I mean that's why I'm supporting you for president.
Well, so I appreciate it. We're going to give incentive to companies to come into our country, not to leave our country. We're going to be giving tremendous incentives. We want companies to build here, not to build in other locations. And we want to create jobs. And again, it's about the American dream. You don't hear about the American dream anymore, Elon. You're the American dream in the truest sense, but you don't hear about the American dream anymore. And you're going to hear about it. People, they need that incentive to go out and do it. And they're going to love their lives. I mean, they're going to look forward to getting up in the morning and going to a job that they love, not a job that they can't stand, or not any job at all, where they have no money, where they literally have no money, and then they end up with violence and lots of other problems. No, we're going to do some great things. And I learned a lot in the first. We had a great economy and all of that. We rebuilt the military. We did so much. But I also learned the best people. I learned the good people, the smart people, the dumb people, the people that can do things. The people, you learn. When I first came in, I tell people I was in Washington, D.C. only 17 times, according to the fake news media. I was in 17 times. I never stayed over. And you don't know people. You rely on other people to give you names, and then you realize the people you relied on weren't so good. Now, we had great people, but we also had some where I wouldn't have, used them had I known. Now I know everybody. And I think we're going to really turn things around fast. We have no choice. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country. And I really appreciate this. Has been, to me, it's been a lot of fun being with you. You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people, a great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up. And I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election. And I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country, because if we don't win, I just feel so sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny of civilization, and I think we need to take the right path, and I think you're the right path. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor, and we'll do it again sometime. And it's been really fun, and I hope you got a lot of viewers. I hear you got a lot, but I hope you got a lot. I know you got a lot of them. So I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, so that's the historic Elon Trump interview, called the greatest interview of our time, because I guess the mainstream media does not want us to hear this at all. We still got 1,000 people with us right now, so we're going to go over this interview for a little bit if you miss some of it. But we have breaking news just now that we have a stabbing going on, or has already occurred in Turkey. A masked man with a knife and axe has injured 5 people. I don't think anyone died. But that's what they were talking about, was the high crime in New York. Elon's mother's friends, 3 of them, have suffered some kind of attack. News in Australia this week, as just a couple of days ago, there was another Muslim man. They don't like to identify, but a Muslim man went to a grocery store called Woolies in Australia, the Woolies, and stabbed 2 people. And they call it random knife attack. I never heard of random knife attack. If a conservative did it, a white person did it, a black person did it, they would, I think they would identify. But there's a particular protected group that they don't identify. So you just know, okay, that's a random knife attack. It just randomly happened after open borders, after insane immigration. So this is what makes people mad. 2-tier policing, 2-tier justice. We got riots going on in the UK because of this. 3 girls were stabbed and died over there, if you've missed that news. So this is breaking news. Now, while we've got 1,000 people here, I want to ask you a favor. If you could please go check your Apple Podcasts or your Spotify, whatever you like to use. I'm a YouTube guy, but I am trying to listen to you, and you said you want to hear what we teach in your car and while you're running. So if you go to Spotify or Apple or whatever you use and just type my name, I know it's hard to type, Cioccolanti, Cioccolanti. See if you can find it. We couldn't find ourselves on the Google, what do they call it now? YouTube Music, I think it is. But we're trying to go on all platforms so that the Word of God just covers the earth and covers America. So let's get some reaction from you guys in the comments and also in studio here. By the way, I've had to bring somebody. Just turn that down a little bit. We're trying to turn a second mic on, and this is what happens. But I was greatly encouraged to see that for the most important interview of our time, even a billionaire like Elon Musk had problems getting the interview going. So we had an interview with His Glory podcaster this morning, and he had technical problems. I had technical problems, so we had to reschedule. But you can be Elon Musk. You have billions of dollars and lots of staff and tech equipment, and it still was delayed by, I think, by about an hour. Yeah. So that's why we got on here, because some people couldn't listen to it, and you will get most of it here because we were one of the million that could get on, and then we just routed the audio to our YouTube channel. And to be able to do that, I just want to say thank you to, I've got my son, my daughter, and then we've got a helper from Australia that we're going to just pay for him to come with his family and live here. So if you'd like to give $1, $5, we got 1,000 people. You give $5, it's like 5,000. That would help for us as a ministry to employ a critical staff. There's critical staff to have a good tech, a good producer, and we can do more and more of this without all the glitches. So we're on live now. We're going to try again. Can we get that mic on without all the feedback? All right.
Test 1, 2.
You don't have to, go ahead. What's your reaction? And then you have to turn that down a little bit so we can not get feedback from me.
I think Elon Musk was quite balanced, and I think Trump kind of very gently jabbed him a few times about the electric cars, and Elon tried to stay on point about the economy, and I think that was quite a good move. I followed Elon myself close to a decade, and he's worked really hard to build that Tesla business, and for him to kind of hold his tongue. For him to hold his tongue and kind of work towards, I guess, uplifting Trump in that interview was quite interesting and nice to see.
Okay, what other reactions we got? I'm looking at the, great interview. I can see what you're writing here. Some of your comments have been buried. Go ahead and type it again if you wish. I saw some comment a long time ago about nuclear. I'm getting feedback on that. If you can just turn that down. No, just turn it down a little bit so we can actually... we've got mics near each other, so we'll solve that. We'll figure all this out. But some comments about nuclear. Okay, so let's clear that up. This is something basic in Trump's unfinished business. On the chapter on climate change, I give 10 prophecies and 10 downloads from God to solve each of these problems. Yeah, it's right there, by the way. It's on Amazon. Anyway, so nuclear is a big thing that Elon Musk talked about. It's a misconception that people have. If you're pro-environment, you should be pro-nuclear, because nuclear is one of the cleanest energies. And one of the things that I put in the book that's astounding is, the U.S. Ford aircraft carrier that runs on nuclear energy can run nonstop without refueling. Guess for how long? 25 years. 25 years. So that's one refueling. That's extremely economical, efficient, good for the environment. Need that mic turned down a little bit more. Thanks. What else here? What else? The waste. People were saying, oh, nuclear waste. I can't believe that Elon said that it's, relatively safe. It's not a threat. So nuclear waste. I think if you put all the nuclear waste in the world together in one place, it's just a few football fields. So you really don't need that much space. And you compare that to batteries, which is considered green energy. I mean, batteries and those the wind farms, I mean, they just pollute, and the batteries will die. So they're a big source of waste and pollution. Nuclear would be much better. At some point, France, before they went woke, was 93% fueled by nuclear energy, and that's why their electric bills were very cheap. So if you want something like, cheap bills, that really is the solution. God's provided all the solutions. That's the good news. When you have a perspective about God, you realize everything that people are looking for, it's already provided. It's been given by God. We don't have scarcity. We have an abundance. We just have too much stupidity, and we have, as Elon said, bad government can turn a very blessed, country with many advantages. It can turn them into Venezuela or Argentina, as it has been for a long, long time with all the different inflations that they had. All right, what else? Could nuclear power train travel the whole nation? Would be nice. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah, he wants to have, I lived in France like 30 years ago and more than 30 years ago, and they had the bullet train back then. And we still don't have it. We're kind of a rundown nation right now. We need to change. All right, what other comments? All right, I'm going to go to the most important thing that will win really the favor and the grace of God is always for Donald Trump to speak about justice, or injustice if you want, and how he's going to bring correction to that. Is really, I guess it's hard, but it's not that hard because you can talk about solutions, and that's what I like to do. I want to get to solutions. I don't want to just talk about problems and complain. The lawfare was mentioned a few times by Elon. He was really giving him an opportunity to bring a solution. I didn't really hear a solution. Did you? Did you catch a solution? A lot of, a lot of attacks, and I think it's fair to say that Trump does go on the offensive very quickly if you give him a chance. But people want to hear solutions. People want positive. I like how Elon just kept saying, we have a great nation, and people want to be excited about our future, and we want to inspire people. Right? The church inspires people, or it ought to inspire people. And I think it's, the solutions are in the Bible. I'm going to read to you some of the downloads that God gave. I'll just give it to you because I know some have read the book, some haven't. So Trump's Unfinished Business, one chapter on court reform, says this: there are lots of ways to totally change this nation very quickly. Number one, diversify the court, the Supreme Court I'm talking about, by nominating a biblical Christian. Rather than nominating Jews and Catholics, which have, dominated the court for so long, how about balancing it out, diversifying it out? A real Bible-believing Christian would be nice to have in court. Create a digital Bill of Rights. That's not hard. Europe's got that. Europe has that, and but they're trying to abuse it to silence the interview that you just heard. They were very unhappy with the interview today. I don't know if you realize that that's the kind of lawfare that Elon faces from Australia, Brazil, Europe. They want to say that you need to be careful what you allow on your platform, or we're going to penalize you, and not only you, they try to penalize his employees in those countries. So very unfair. We can remove barriers to self-representation. Why are we enriching the lawyers for everything that happens in life? People are so afraid of lawsuits in this country. Remove barriers to self-representation. Recognize parallel legal systems. This is in the Bible. Hardly anybody talks about it, but recognize parallel legal systems. That's what the Jews have. The Jews go and marry, divorce, and strike business deals in the Beth Din. Guess who's overseeing it? Their most moral representatives, their rabbis, oversee that. That's the Beth Din. That's why the Muslims cry out for Sharia, and they will not accept our Gentile courts. And even if you disagree with it, that's what happens. They have their parallel system. Well, in the Bible, it talks about that. It's called creating competition, by the way. You're not going to make corrupt, evil people that are benefiting and getting rich off the system to change. But what you can do is create competition. So it just blows me away that people who are very smart like Trump and Elon have never considered or spoken a solution to the lawfare that they're experiencing. The only solution is not to ask bad people to be nice. The solution is to create and incentivize competition. What if you paid judges more who didn't have their decisions overturned all the time? What if you impeach the judges that have 25-30% of their decisions overturned? I mean, it's a failure, right? If you build a home and 25-30% of them collapse, or a bridge, 25% of your bridges collapse, you'd be out of business. How come judges get away with that? And there are circuit courts of appeals that have their decisions overturned all the time, and there's no accountability. So asking them to be nice isn't the solution. That's not what the Bible teaches. The church itself. Now I want to talk to the church. The church must revive its ministry of justice. When you say those words, people don't even know what you mean. The whole Bible, the Bible gave us the 10 Commandments, right? The Bible is a book of justice. Jesus is coming back to judge. How obvious is it? We have a ministry of justice. And hardly anybody knows about that. 1 Corinthians 6 talks about it, that you and I are being trained to one day judge. Know ye not that ye shall judge angels? Can you not judge small matters between yourselves? Well, we evidently cannot. And this is why we have the lawfare that we have. Right. So that was a big part of the interview. And I just didn't hear enough solution. And I really do wish that they got to solutions. When you don't hear the solution, either they're holding their card tight, like you don't hear a lot about big tech. So I think Elon and Elon knows and Trump knows they've got to deal with big tech. When you're talking about election integrity, what you're talking about is not allowing big tech to mold and shape elections, mold people's minds and shape elections. So they need to deal with that with a digital Bill of Rights. I have steps and clauses that are already written down that I believe are from the Bible. All right. Another big point that you might have missed, Elon, really was when he was speaking, he was trying to tell people, you can hear his concern about Kamala. Like, he didn't come out so much against Biden, but with Kamala, man, he's really worried. And he's trying to tell you, Kamala's dad is a professor of Marxism, right? He's a Marxist. He's a avowed Marxist. So is Kamala. So if you don't want Venezuelan-style dictatorship, Cuban-style dictatorship, you should not be, according to him, pro-Kamala. All right. And I think that covers a lot of things. So again, if you want, we might put this on podcast. We're putting more and more on podcasts. So go check out Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other platform that you use. All right. My daughter's got a comment. Go for it. Please speak up. Go ahead. Yes, please tell me.
One of the questions was, do you think that great earthquakes could damage nuclear plants and cause meltdowns?
Well, of course, it's happened, right? It's happened. So you don't want to build it in seismic zones. And that's the problem with Japan. Japan depends on, but the thing is, Japan is, the whole thing is over, it's got volcanic activities everywhere. It's got onsens everywhere underneath them. So even in one of the most dangerous places in the world, in the entire history, you've only got one tsunami that damaged the nuclear power plant in Fukushima, and they could have done better to prevent that. So there are ways to shut it down, and they have already improved things like that. So Japan is a great test case, right? So if you're in a place, El Salvador is trying to build Bitcoin mining facilities because they've got volcanic activity there, and they can mine that and they can use that to generate electricity. But not every area in the world has that, right? So you would build your nuclear power plants where you have less known earthquakes. That would be the solution. Okay, it's just like you would put windmills where there are winds. You're not going to put it somewhere where it's quiet. So when I fly across Hawaii and I see the windmills there, the electric ones, they put it up high, on the top of the mountains, and that's catching wind, right? So there's a risk to everything. There's a risk to fossil fuel, to nuclear, to wind. But thank you for giving. That's very nice. Again, we have 400,000 people that follow. If everybody just gave $1, we could employ all the people that we need. We need to add one more staff immediately. So if you have it on your heart, partner with this ministry. That's all it takes. Employing one person, fair wage, $50,000. I think that's fair. That's what we want so that we can do more for God. All right. Any other question? Nuclear power plants are safer than riding in a car. Yep, that's true. All right. I'm looking at your comments. We're going to wind down. Yeah, this is live. If you want to meet with me live next week, we call it The Huddle. Come to discoverchurch.online. I meet with my inner circle, my collaborators, my supporters, and I just take your question like this once a month. I enjoy it. I love interacting with you, and YouTube is kind of toxic, and you don't know who's there. So people just like to be keyboard warriors. But when you come into our own community with our own app, it's really nice. You meet really nice people. I saw some people ask about the Goshen. Again, the Goshen is a biblical term for having a safe place in case things go bad. And I teach about that. Goshen is probably one of the nicest teachings that you can get. Where can they get that this time? Vimeo has it. Probably our store. Check it out. See if it's there. Discoverchurch.online. But Goshen is a very big deal, big topic. And if you don't know what it means, certainly go study it first. Biblically, what it means. It's temporary. That's one of the things I want you to know, that no matter how bad things got in Armenia, right? And people had to flee Armenia when the Turks attacked the Christians, but eventually Armenia became peaceful. Same with Germany, right? The Jews had to leave at a certain point, but then they came back. So it's nice and it's wise to have a Goshen just in case something bad happens. And what does it mean? And what are the kind of the checklists that you would go through? So A lot of preppers here in America, so you need to belong to a community. Ours is one of them. Discover Church.online. You'd meet a lot of preppers. Thank you. I see somebody gave $1.99. Yeah, we had a video that was removed and we couldn't tell why. And this is one of the reasons why I'm asking more people to try alternative platforms like the podcast. Not that I like Spotify much better. They're censorial. They have censorship as well. They all do, to get up to where they're at that level. They all follow DEI. They follow the WEF's agenda. But while we have alternatives, I would still go to podcasting. And if you find our channel, write a nice review for us. That would be great. Maybe it helps the algorithm, because it's something new that we're getting back into, is just a podcast. Because I know a lot of you asked about it. You want to hear in your car, on your walks. Okay, help me out here. What other good questions? Because they keep scrolling pretty fast. So I'm trying to see. So about the book, whether it gets to Donald Trump, I don't think he's a reader. I mean, he reads the newspaper in the morning. He sleeps 4 hours a day. He reads the newspaper. But I don't think that he spends a lot of time reading. And people who, people who get to meet him, they get 5 minutes. And if he's interested in what you say, then you get another 5 minutes. So it's not like the way that I, as a pastor, want to disciple someone. You need time to teach them how to pray, how to talk to God, how to have faith. And the country is in such a critical time right now that he just needs he needs our prayer. We need to pray a little bit differently. We need to take go on the offensive when we pray and not be passive. That alone will help people so much. I'll give an advice. Okay, I'll give a tool that's going to help you. It's called Get Prayers Answered. Get Prayers Answered. It's 30 years of my prayer that have been answered. And I show you how to be more proactive, how to be more on the offense, when you're praying. Don't be passive at this time. Don't just pray, oh, Lord, if it's your will, if not, then let the abortionists win and let the terrorists win. Well, that's not going to work. You have to be very decisive, very clear about what is the written judgment. The book of Psalm talks about the written judgment. We're commanded to speak and to execute the written judgment. Well, you got to get really good at knowing the word of God. So I've listed those scriptures that we've prayed for many people, and it just works. It brings results. And they win. That's what we want to do. We want to win. Yeah, we want you to win. Okay, thank you for that. Well, my team has brought up the URL very quickly, discoverchurch.online/I pray. That's a free chapter. It's just free. We're not getting anything from it. Just go get a free chapter. What else? Oh, this is nice. Thank you. Matthew gave us a donation of $50 with a nice little, said an emoji. And Kiki gave us $9.99. Thank you, Kiki. Yeah, if you want to ask any question, or if you want to come to a huddle every month, I meet with my partners, and I really enjoy it. I like Flynn, so do I. Yeah, I'm sure if he wins, he's going to take General Flynn and put him into some position. I think he's pretty much committed himself to employing Elon Musk. So what's Elon going to do? He's already got 3 major companies. He's going to have a role and an office in Washington, D.C. pretty soon. All right. Yeah, 9th of Av is coming up. That's the day when the 2 temples were destroyed. So the enemies of Israel are aware of that, and they said that they are planning a shock and awe surprise for Israel at this time. And it would match the timeline that I've been teaching everybody, that we're at the red horse. I know that's hard for some people to understand because they just have so many layers of assumptions about what it means when I say that. I do not mean that you've missed the rapture. I do not mean that we're in the tribulation. We're not in the tribulation, right? But we're at the red horse. So that means you've got to correct some of the assumptions that I'm not going to explain right now, because we're at the end of the night, the end of a podcast. And really, I just wanted to make sure that you heard the interview without frustration, because even X, with a billionaire running it, had technical difficulties. And I know the pain of that. I do know. Today I didn't do an interview because of technical difficulties. Trains across America. Why is Trump so jealous about Bukele? I'm not sure that he's jealous. I know what you mean, that he shouldn't put him down, and he was a bit ambiguous about it, whether he was putting down Venezuela or whether he seems to have just lumped Venezuela and El Salvador together, saying that the reason that they got better is because they just exported all their criminals to over here. But then if you go to El Salvador, the Salvadorans would say, no, America during the Clinton years emptied out the prisons where the Salvadorans and other Latinos learned from American gangs how to organize themselves, and so we deported them and shipped them back to Latin America and caused all the crime wave there. So both sides have their grievances, and Trump is, America first. He's pro-America, as a leader should be. He wants to put his country first. So I think they're both people who are speaking in a way that puts their country first. Bukele puts El Salvador first. Trump would put America first, and that's the beauty of the table of nations that you see in Genesis 10. God wants nations. God is a nationalist, by the way. He's not an internationalist. The proof of that is he destroyed the plans of Nimrod to build a globalist society called the Tower of Babel. Okay, so that's why Babel is still, all the way to the end of Revelation, is a symbol of the globalist agenda, right? These megalomaniacs think that they're called to rule over other people when only God is qualified to rule over you. Thank you, Tom, for $10. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad we could do this service and have a little bit of interaction together. Has Trump's unfinished business been handed to Trump? Yes, it has. Yeah, I don't want to name the names, but it's gone. Well, I can say I have personally handed it to Eric Trump. So I couldn't assure you any better than that it has gone into a Trump family member's hands. Well, what they do with it, I don't know. And I see him. I don't want to ask him, did you read my book? Sounds a little bit self-serving, doesn't it? Hello, did you read my book? So you just got to pray. These people get distracted just like you and I do. They need encouragement. They need strengthening. They need people around them who are not trying to just leech on them. Everybody's got some desire just to take a photo near them. And the first time I met Eric Trump, I just said, I'm not going to go and push. And I'm half Asian, so I have a little bit of Asian in me, and I just think I'm gonna be polite. But man, I could see Americans, as soon as they see Roger Stone, as soon as they see Eric Trump, well, everybody's pushing each other. There's no more decency and courtesy. People just push because they want to get something of their agenda out there. But these people just need to be loved on, prayed for, and we put the right tools in their hand. God can just wake them up one night. Just pray, God, wake them up. Just say, that's the book. Remember, God did that to Nebuchadnezzar, right? God's done that to Esther's king. Which one was it? Was it Artaxerxes, was it? Anyway, he woke up. I'm thinking about Trump right now. I'm not thinking about the biblical leaders, but the king of Persia woke up in the middle of the night and just said, bring the chronicles out, their annals. And then they found Mordecai had told him about an assassination plot, and then he rewarded Mordecai for that. It was just before Haman planned to kill him. Ahasuerus, yes, Ahasuerus. I got fact checkers here. Praise God. Anointed fact checkers. Praise God. All right. Hey, Amazing Grace. Is that Donna, Amazing Grace? Named Xerxes right there. Ahasuerus is the king. Were to send money order, P.O. Box. Okay, that P.O. Box is in the discoverchurch.online website /give, discoverchurch.online/give. There should be a P.O. Box for you. Heard you on Alex Jones. Thank you. It was such an honor to be with Alex, and I've prayed for him a lot. I can see a lot of the celebrity podcasters, one by one, they're coming closer to God, talking more about God. So our prayers are being heard. That's really good. Yeah, Alex, and he did say he's going to have us on again, so we're looking forward to that. And by the way, we're going to go on video. Was it band.video? So that's Alex Jones' website. So we're creating a channel there, and he's accepted it, and we're going to have our videos on yet another platform. So podcasting is new, and Alex Jones' platform is new. So we're just working harder than ever before. And I work in 2 different time zones. I got the Australians, staff. I got the U.S. staff, and I'm just traveling. We're going to Louisiana next, beginning of September. If you're in Louisiana, we're going there. Texas viewer, yeah, love Texas. Lots of good friends in Texas. Where can we buy Get Prayers Answered? Yeah, you can't buy it. That's why I'm giving you the free chapter. Can't buy it yet. I'm a bit snowed under with all the different projects. I've got 3 books I'm working on at the same time. This prayer book should be done. If you just pray for me, it should be done should be done this week, but I don't want to make a early promise. Thank you, Dina. Dina Rose. Dina Rose gave $2. It all counts. It all counts. It all counts towards your heavenly account, right? You partner with a good ministry. It's teaching the Word of God. That's credit to your heavenly account. All right. Oklahoma in the house. Yes, Oklahoma was my home for a couple of years. Oklahoma. Sweet home, Oklahoma. I made that up. I lived in Tulsa. Good interview. Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, hey, if there's no more question and no more interaction from the studio here, I'm going to sign off pretty soon. So any lingering thoughts? I'm just going to read. Oh, thank you, Natalie. Thank you. Appreciate the sowing into Discover Ministries. Appreciate that. Oh, Brisbane. All right. My home country, Brisbane, Australia. Brisbane's a nice place. New Zealand. Oh, don't forget, we're going to Saudi Arabia. I know that Americans have not had this experience, but we're going in November, 12 to 17. You can go to discoverchurch.online/tour. Tour. Oh, look at that. What a great staff I got. Without employing just the extra staff, like we don't even get these banners. So we're very blessed. There's the banner. The lower third is right there. discover.org.au/tour. Oh, I said our American website. So you got 2 websites running. It's the Australian website, discover.org, which is organization, the org.org.au, which is Australia, /tour. And you can still join our expedition. This is not a 5-star hotel, experience in some touristy place. This is an expedition where you go and Mount Sinai still looks like Mount Sinai, the way Moses climbed it. And you'll see the Red Sea crossing, the most likely place where, 3 million Jews crossed the Red Sea supernaturally, and take you through Elim, take you to Moses' well, take you to Jethro's cave. It's an unbelievably enriching experience. But please don't expect 5-star treatment. It's an expedition. You got to stay fit, get fit for the next 3 months, and come with me. It's very safe, very safe. Wow, Saudi Arabia is one of the really a pleasant experience because they've changed it. Okay? Whatever you heard before, they've changed it in a big way. They want tourists, so they protect tourists. Adam, thank you for your blessing. Yes? 2 questions. Go for it. My daughter's telling me 2 questions. How do we pray for Trump? Well, this Get Prayer Answered book, when it comes out, one of the first chapters is called Assassination, because we prayed for 1,369 days continuously up to July 13, the day of the assassination. We prayed every day for Trump. And of course, we prayed for other things as the Spirit led. But I will show you the scriptures that we put, scriptures for protection, deliverance, lifting of the curse, for your children, your family. So one by one, even legal cases, how we prayed for his legal cases, court cases, legal disputes, all that, all the way down the line. It's outlined alphabetically. So I will show you how to pray for even the worst kind of attack, which is a physical assassination attempt. And it was answered. So I'm telling you, Get Prayers Answered are 30 years of prayers that were answered, and exactly how I did it. But right now, all I can give you is a free chapter at discoverchurch.online/I-pray. And I'll give you all those scriptures that the Lord gave me and how I used them. And you'll learn so much. Every chapter's got a little nugget and some revelation in there. How do you give? How do you give? Lots of ways to give. Even in the description box of all the YouTube videos, if you just uncollapse the description, there's going to be all sorts of ways to give. From in America, there's Zelle, checks, internationally, crypto. Or you can go to, in America, if you want tax-deductible giving, you go to the one that's right on your screen, discoverchurch.online/give. If you're international and you don't care about tax deductibility, you go to discover.org.au/give. And there are many, many options. So I don't know, PayPal and Stripe and all that. We got all those things. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee. Lee Schaefer. Thank you for blessing and partnering with us. It means a lot. And when we go live like this, I just get to thank you. So I appreciate that. Is it called Gold Coast because Australia starts with AU and is the element symbol for gold? Yeah, that's a good one. AU is the element symbol for gold. I think they mean the golden sand and the golden sun, because the gold was actually found in Victoria. That's where the gold rush was. Just like gold, there was a gold rush in California. There was a gold rush down in Victoria, the state that's in the south, where I come from, in Australia. So for people who ask, I'm half Australian, half Asian. So I have a bit of both. Thank you. I think Dina, I already thanked. All right, any more? Thank you for staying with me and hanging out. I feel like we're just hanging out with some friends. And it's getting late into the night and you're still hanging out with me. Okay, one more comment or question. Let's do it, and then let's wrap it up. It's been a great night. I'm really glad that Elon did what he did. You know, it's a big prayer answer. Just one person can change so much. You know, you can change so much. Every person counts. It's not just the billionaire. Every person counts. And I think Elon was a real wild card, wasn't he? They didn't expect him. They didn't expect him to come out like that and put his money where his mouth is and do this interview. That's why in Europe, they're trying to use their law in Europe to ban or to censor X for allowing Trump to speak. They're losing their grip. We're going to win this. We're going to win this. And we're going to have some revival for, I predict, for at least a couple of years. You know, revivals don't last forever. So you need to understand that. You seize the day. See, carpe diem. Take the opportunity. Thank you, Martino. Thank you. Where are you from? Let us know. Oh, we got Nagaland. You know, I nearly went to India in Manipur the very weekend when violence broke out. There's violence going on against Christians done by Hindus, killing Christians, chopping their hands, chopping their head, raping the women, stripping them naked and parading them, humiliating them in the fields on a level like October 7 in Israel. That happened last year, I think it was May or March. I'm sorry, I'm confusing the months that start with M. But on the very weekend that it started, I was supposed to go, and somebody had a dream. So not only do I receive dreams, but I help people interpret dreams, right? Especially if they're under my covering, then the Lord will help, use me. Just like Joseph can help Pharaoh. If there's permission given, then the Lord will anoint. So I helped them interpret a dream, and I said, it's very strange, but it sounds like we're not supposed to go. So we canceled a trip to Manipur, India, the very weekend I would have been there. My feet would have been on the ground. Violence would have broken out where the Hindus were killing Christians, actively killing Christians. It hasn't stopped all this time. There are Christians on the run that we've been supporting. So when you give to this ministry, we send a lot of the money to India, and they make it hard. You talk about Revelation 13, where the Antichrist controls trade and money. They're doing it right now in India. If they know a church is sending it, they try to stop it. If they know a Christian is trying to receive it, they try to stop it. It's very unfair, very grotesque, but that's happening live right now. I don't know how we got to that. Can you remind me? Oh, Nagaland. Thank you. Nagaland. That's the neighbor. Nagaland. Nagaland is like 80% Baptist. I don't know how some Baptist missionary got to Nagaland and converted it to 80%. It's like the deep south of India. So India has this little arm, East India, and people there don't even look ethnically Indian, but they are Indian. And lots of success in evangelism in that area, and we were a part of it. We support a ministry and helped them start a business, and they got a Bible school, and all that's been burned down. It's all burned down. Unbelievable, but that's what people are going through these days. And we who live in the comfort of the West, and especially America, we should do a lot more. Like giving money is like the least we could do. When things settle down, we should go over there and help them physically. It's nothing like face-to-face meeting. That's why I do these trips. We'll go down to Honduras soon. We'll go to Honduras, Louisiana. All right. So I was saying one more question. Was there a question? Yeah, monsters. They're monsters. So that's interesting. How about we close on this? Because we talked about reaping and sowing at some point, I think, or unless that's another podcast. I've got so many recordings going on every day, but I think I commented on Alex Jones. That's going to come out probably tomorrow about the most hated woman in the world. Alex Jones talked about this woman. I'll keep it a surprise, but he kind of, said, hey, she reaped what she sowed. So, the Hindus. So the Hindus have been having wars against Christians, small local battles for ages. Nobody ever talks about the Christians. And in fact, when I have tried to post on YouTube and previously on Twitter, they get censored. You're not allowed to see it. But if Jews died, you can see it. If a black person dies, you can see it. If a Hindu dies, you can see it. So basically, everybody else but Christians. The most persecuted group of people in the world are Christians, Christian brothers and sisters. And we're not even allowed to see the news. They don't talk about it like it's a humanitarian crisis. And that's what it is. It's a crime. It's a genocide. It's a humanitarian crisis that we should be praying about and giving towards. And you don't see it. So then what happens? So after that's swept under the rug, nothing is swept under the rug. Everything that we think, say, and do is a seed for our future. And unless we come and repent to Jesus and ask the blood of Jesus to wash us, it's all going to sprout one day. So then I see the news in Bangladesh. The Hindus are now victims of a genocide by the Muslims in Bangladesh. And people look at that and say, what an atrocity. And of course it is. Of course. I have sympathy for any human being that's being terrorized. But isn't it interesting that the people who have been killing Christians, like they burned missionaries in their cars. This happened in Orissa was one of the towns where this is famous. People just know, Christians died in their car. They were burned alive. And then nothing happens. Nobody's caught. Nobody goes to jail. This has been going on for ages. And then suddenly you hear in the news, the Hindus are attacked by the Muslims. Right? And it seems like, it's unfair. But you didn't see the history. You only see the harvest, right? So everybody looks at the harvest. I look at the seed. What kind of seed did you sow? We're not just talking about the American prosperity gospel. It's the seed is only money. No, everything is a seed. Your thought, your words, your action, your attitude, it's all a seed. So we try to sow good seeds because then we create a future that's better. And, God's not unjust. People are reaping what they sow. So the only way to break that curse is through the blood of Jesus. He breaks that cycle of sin and curse, sin and curse, sin and curse. And that's why there's human suffering. Okay, so I think I've covered a lot of territory. I want to thank Julia. I know Julia. She's our friend in Australia. $20 she gave. 20 Australian. Yeah, Orissa. That's right, Orissa. Somebody fact-checked me, said I got the right name. I've been to 50 countries, thank the Lord. I got a lot of names in my head, a lot of places. And it's a pleasure. So thank you so much. A lot of you partner with us, and it's just amazing. We're going to go to heaven and see together we did something, small for the Lord while we're alive. We did something for God. We did something for God. And what a privilege. We got to serve him. During our short lives, we got to serve him. So thank you for joining me, all 800 that are still remaining at this late time of night. We're in Florida time. We're at 11:30. I hope to see you on YouTube, on podcasts, or an online church. Online church is not YouTube. Online church means that you download an app, our church app, and you get into a community. So wherever you want to be, I'll see you. I will see you there. God bless you. We'll see you at the next event. Love you.